Jambo jambo, jambo watoto wa Afrika. Yeah.
Welcome to I'll Lead Africa. Today we profile Oduor Jagero. Oduor Jagero grew up in Kisumu town and Nyando district. He attended Nalunya Primary School and Olembo High School, and thereafter joined Nairobi Aviation College, undertaking a course on journalism and broadcasting.
And of course, when studying mass communication and journalism, you learn a lot of things about writing. You learn a lot of things about ethics. You learn a lot of things about dealing with other people and telling the stories that other people have not heard, or crystallizing the stories that people have heard, and then giving them something, that is easy to understand and to read. Jagero burst onto the Kenyan literary scene in 2014 with his self-published novel, True Citizen. His new book, The Ghost of 1894, centers on the genocide of 1994 that saw close to 1 million Rwandese killed by their fellow countrymen. A lot of people had written about the genocide, but what I was very interested in was to write about a story based on the genocide, but also look at pre-genocide. What was really happening before genocide? I started digging into the history of Rwanda. After college, he relocated to Rwanda and while there, wrote for local newspapers. So after my college, I decided that I want to go to Rwanda and look at the people of Rwanda and hear the stories that come out of Rwanda. Upon returning to Kenya, he decided not to join the mainstream media because he wanted freedom to exploit his creativity and maximum without restrictions.
What I go through when I'm writing is that writing for me is therapeutic. Writing is this world where I dip myself and begin to talk with my characters. I begin to see them, I begin to interact with them, and I begin to direct them on the things that they want to do. I create mountains for them that they have to climb. I create valleys for them that they have to climb down into. And I create joy that they want to experience.
Welcome to I Lead Africa. This is where we raise the levels of leadership dialogues. We engage with business mavens, game changers, and the gurus of personal development and productivity. With me today is a trained journalist, a poet, a tech enthusiast, and an award-winning playwright. His name is Oduor Jagero. Karibu.
Thank you very much.
To kick us off, tell us, when did you know you wanted to become a writer?
Maybe in high school. I had written, I used to write a lot of poetry in high school. And then there was a day I wrote a love letter.
Okay.
And the letter was stolen. I wrote it to no one specifically. But then the letter was stolen and it was given to a neighboring girl in a neighboring school. And word came back and I could hear the boys talking about how it went. So I realized that if you can write a love letter and the letter can be stolen and be given to a girl next door, then there is something perhaps that in you that you need to follow up on. And I think that is when it dawned on me that perhaps I am a writer. And before that I'd been reading a lot, and I had this idea of telling stories. Yeah, I think that's when it hit me that I want that perhaps I should be a writer.
Okay.
Yes.
What inspires your writing?
Everyday events. I like watching people. I like thinking about what people are thinking. The weather, everything. And I always want to recreate what I have seen. to add a little salt to it, add a little juice to it, and make it even more interesting. Exaggerate it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So could you say that that is why being a novelist is important to you?
Yeah, I would say so. Being a novelist is, in a blog you can tell so much. In a news article or in a newspaper column you can tell so much. In a novel you bring the readers into a world, into a big jungle, and you begin to walk them through a particular story. And I believe that novels address bigger issues or broad of issues in a broader sense.
Okay.
That is why I write novels. But of course I also write poetry, I write blogs. If you look at my Facebook page, I'm always doing flash fictions, and I commentate on political issues, on social issues, on every other issue that arises at any given time.
And you've written 2 novels?
Yes, 2 novels.
Namely?
I have written, the first one is True Citizen. True Citizen is about a gentleman who was once a bad guy, but he marries. After getting married, he gets a daughter. And it dawns on him that now he cannot afford to treat other people's daughters wrongly or in a bad way.
Okay.
So he quits what he was doing, that is violent robbery, and gets into matatu industry, being a driver.
Okay.
But he realizes there is a big problem even in the matatu industry. There's a cartel. There's the corrupt traffic police officers. Then he falls in love with another woman.
Whoa.
And things begin to spiral out of control. So that is True Citizen. Then we have The Ghost of 1894. The Ghost of 1894 is plotted within the Rwandan genocide of 1994. But a lot of stories have been told about the Rwandan genocide of 1994. So I went further back to what really happened, what precipitated the genocide. So I go all the way to 1959, the first Hutu revolution. I go past that to when the Germans, the Belgians kicked the Germans out of Rwanda. I go even past that when the Germans actually colonized the Rwandan people. After they were kicked out of Uganda, or of course they wanted to come into Uganda, but they couldn't because the British was already there.
Sure.
Yeah. So that is the story. My main character is called Habineza, and I trace his story from 1960, and I trace the story of Rwanda to the year 1894.
Okay. Let's talk about The Ghost of 1894. Tom Othiambo says that your book is a story that once again reminds Africans that it is they, only Africans, who will overcome the evil that shadows the continent and rehumanize themselves. What is empowering about the story of The Ghost of 1894?
Ghost of 1894 is a story of survival. It's a family that left their country around 1950s because there was war. They settled in Uganda, but then everybody knows about the war in Uganda. That is the Idi Amin, that is the guys like Benaiza. We know that there was the Luero Triangle during the... So, and then this guy, after this, during the war of that was during the killings by who's this guy, Idi Amin, he decided to leave his country. He decided to leave Uganda to Rwanda again, and then in 1994 he leaves Rwanda again.
Okay.
Yeah. So and it is the story that is happening everywhere. There are, if you look at Nairobi, there are a lot of Congolese who have fled the war.
True.
In Congo, we have a lot of Rwandese people who have fled the war in Rwanda. We have Burundians who are living in Nairobi who fled the war in Burundi. We have people actually living in Nairobi who fled the war in Uganda and other African countries. So I think what Tom Odhiambo is agreeing with is that only Africans can save themselves. Right now in Kenya, we're having a lot of tribal tensions. We have 80 people who have been arrested because of hate speech. And it is they are trying to make Kenyans fight amongst themselves. But Tom Odhiambo is saying that only Kenyans can say that these guys belong in prison. These guys cannot tell us to fight. Because when we fight, they don't suffer because they live in nice places like this place. And people are throwing stones there. They are here taking champagne by the trees, and when they have to come out, they come out in armored cars and things like that. So it is only Africans who can rehumanize themselves. Yes.
Why did you feel it was important to retell the Rwanda story?
The Rwandan story, there are people who don't know about the Rwandan story. The Rwandan story happened in 1994. But that is not even the Rwandan story. The Rwandan story happened in 1959 when the Hutus decided that enough is enough. We are not going to be sat on by the Tutsis. These guys, we want to kill them and forget about them. The Rwandan story did not start in 1959. The Rwandan story started in 1894 when the Germans colonized. And then after the Germans colonized Rwanda, there was war, the World War I in Europe. Germany wanted to attack France, but there was no way they could attack France without passing through Belgium. During that time, there was a huge presence of Belgium Congo. There were a lot of soldiers that were taking care, that had colonized the Congo. But then the Belgians told Germany back in Belgium that we cannot give you free passage through our land because we are a neutral country. Then the Germans said, we will go either way. We will either step on your children, kill your women as we go to France, or you give us free passage. The Belgians said no. And then they went and killed several Belgians on their way to France. Belgians in Congo decided that now that you're messing around with us in Europe, we will mess around with you in Africa. So they went and kicked them out of Rwanda. And then they started the idea of giving preferential treatment to the Tutsis. And that's what brought the war, and that's what brought the friction between the Tutsi and the Hutu.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that we as Africans have learned anything from the struggles of our dark past?
I don't think so. I don't think we have learned. We have not learned at all. For example, take Kenya, for example. Kenya has not learned from the events of 2007. The same things that they were saying during the 2000s, just before the post-election violence, are the same things that people are still saying now. The same oppression that the Ugandans suffered in the hands of Idi Amin, in the hands of Milton Obote, is the same oppression that Museveni is using on the people of Uganda. The same denial of basic services that Moi refused to give Kenyans is the same thing that the current president is not trying to give. So we are not learning. Everybody is just doing their own things, to take care of themselves. But I'm hoping that we will start to learn. Actually, by taking those guys to court and making them responsible for what they have done, what they have said, I think is a good step.
What do you think, what lessons do you think the Rwandan and other African genocides offer the next generation?
Everybody knows what war can do to a country. Everybody knows what war has done to Congo. Congo is the richest, one of the richest countries in the world. They have all the minerals you can think about. Look at Sudan. Sudan has oil. Look at South Sudan. Has vast deposits of oil. But the war has messed them up. So I think that we can begin to do better. We can begin to think better. We can begin to act better. Yeah. Instead of, like I was saying, that instead of There is the country government of Kisumu. He has not done well. They have not done well. But the people of Kisumu are rioting against an election that has not been declared, instead of rioting against the services that they need to get from their county government. So we as a people are not even seeing the sense, the futility of what we are doing. Yeah, so I hope that those kind of things can change.
Let's hold it right there. We are going on a short break. We'll be right back.
Fire burning, tell them the truth, there's nothing to lose, no, keep the fire burning. Keep the fire burning, tell them the truth, there's nothing to lose, no, keep the fire burning.
Welcome back to the show. This is Untitled Africa. Our guest today is Oduor Jagero, a tech enthusiast, a poet, and a trained journalist. Welcome back. The major challenge facing the African novel is the lack of resources to make time to be creative and innovative. What is your take on that?
It's true that there are no resources, but there is no resource. There are no resources to do a lot of things in Africa, but still people do them.
True.
Yeah, so I think in life you should not focus on the lack. Focus on the little that is there and what can be done out of that little. As a writer, I am self-published. It means I am not cushioned by any publishing house. It means then that I have to write. I have to give money to an independent editor to do the copy editing. I have to give the work to a proofreader to proofread the work. I have to bring in the expertise of a graphics designer to do the cover, and then I have to print the book, and then I have to distribute and sell the book. I like to say that you're only born once, and I think other people have also said it, so you can't wait for resources. Resources have to get you along the way. Whichever little you have, you've got to invest it and see if you're going to realize something bigger.
True. Do you agree that Africans are not telling their real stories, but instead telling stories, just stories?
I don't agree. I think Africans are telling their stories. If you look at the blogosphere, the people are writing a lot about what is happening to them. Yeah, there is a blog that talks about the things that you don't want. You've always wanted to keep a secret. I think there's a blog in Kenya that does that. So I saw people who were once bald and they were shaving all their hair. People that had lumps, people that have problems, people who had hair in their skin and their ladies on their legs, on their beards. They had beards. So I think Africans are telling their stories. They are telling. Some are not, but a lot of people are actually telling their stories.
Okay. You said that Kenya is a bold representation of Africa, where tribe is still a currency.
Yes.
And corruption is a strong a Bitcoin, and development is fiercely shunned.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that observation.
Africa is known for retrogression. You would remember that in 1960s, Kenya was in the league of Switzerland, Japan. Maybe Japan was a bit higher, but Northern Ireland and all those small countries, Norway, but now the economy of those countries are almost 50 times that of Kenya. And everything that is happening in Africa is actually happening in Kenya. People who do not want to retire people going to court, they are 70 years, they should be retiring and sitting down and regaining their energy and helping the country in other ways. But they go to court and say that I still want to work. Of course they can work elsewhere or in other capacities. We have one of the worst roads in Nairobi. If you're driving in Nairobi, there are potholes everywhere. There are manholes everywhere. And the traffic police are like hyenas on the road. Corruption has taken root in the country. Everything is going haywire. And a lot of African countries are suffering the same way. So Kenya, I think, is a bold representation of the bad things that are happening in Africa. We can do better. I hope we are going to be doing better. But progress is really shunned in this country. And now the county government, they are looting the country. So it's a very bad situation that we are in right now.
Talk to us about CMS Africa, what it stands for, and discuss on open source technology.
Okay. CMS Africa stands for Content Management System. Of course, Africa. It happens in Africa. It's to do with web. The open source systems that we use to build a website. That is WordPress, Joomla. We have Drupal, and others. So CMS Africa brings together all these guys that use these open source systems to build the web, and every year we bring about 600 people in the open source world. We bring about 30 speakers to talk about how to develop the web better using these technologies. So we bring in experts in Joomla, we bring in experts in WordPress, we bring in Drupal experts, and other experts in different disciplines. We do a lot of things with Google, we do a lot of things with IBM. So that is all we do. We also do Joomla Day Kenya, where people who want to learn about Joomla, who want to develop using Joomla, can come and learn more technologies on how to better their expertise. We also do. We are starting to do WordPress. We'll be having small conferences where we teach people on how to do WordPress and things like that. CMS Africa revolves around Africa. It was started in Kenya. I started it in Kenya. It has been in Kenya for 4 years. This year we had it in Kampala, Uganda. Next year we'll be having it in Lagos, Nigeria. So it revolves around that. So there are a lot of people. If you look at our universities, when they're teaching technology, they don't go. They are a bit archaic in the way they teach. A lot of things that are being used right now is not part of the syllabus. So when those guys come out of the university, we give them, there are practical things they can learn about web development. So we learn about social marketing, how to use social networks to grow your company, how to use a blog to grow your company, and how to earn money as a professional website designer. Yes.
Lastly, tell us how open source technology catalyzes innovation.
There are a lot of softwares out there that are very expensive to buy. If you look at architectural softwares, if you look at health softwares, if you look at other softwares, you realize that open source is, the reason why it's called open source is because it is open. The code is easily available to the public. And so even if you're using it to develop something, you can easily get it without actually spending the money. And people innovate. If you look at blogging in Kenya, it is basically happening because of open source. Because you can start a website, you basically have the code, you can tweak the code, you can make it into a fashion blog, you can make it into a health blog, you can make it into a cooking blog, and things like that. So open source gives you the opportunity for free to innovate things, to come up with things. Even the people who are building websites, if they were to buy the open source systems, the systems to build websites will be very expensive to them. But because it is open, there are a lot of innovations that are happening because the software is free, the code is free. Yes.
Okay. We have come to the end of the show, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
It has been a pleasure hosting you today.
Thank you very much.
We have come to the end of the show. This is Alid Africa, and I have been your host, Sarah Eunice. Till next time.
Hello, hello. Hello, Africa. Jambo, jambo.